Hi there. I'm Jarvis McInnis, and I'm an associate professor of English and a scholar of African American and African diaspora literature and culture. I am honored and delighted that my new book, my first book in fact, Afterlives of the Plantation, Plotting Agrarian Futures in the Global Black South, has been selected as a summer read for 2025. Afterlives of the Plantation explores the cultural, intellectual, and political ties between Southern African American and Afro-Caribbean writers, artists, intellectuals, students, and laypersons in the late 19th to early 20th centuries, as they confronted the new ways that the plantation and its exploitative logic persisted in slavery's aftermath. With the rise and codification of Jim Crow segregation in the United States, and European colonial and U.S. imperial domination in the Caribbean and Latin America. Most studies of Black internationalism in this period focus on urban, global northern epicenters like Harlem, London, Chicago, and Paris. But Afterlives of the Plantation focuses on the ties among Black people in the rural plantation regions of the Americas instead. Specifically, it focuses on the ways that the Tuskegee Institute, the school founded on the grounds of a former cotton plantation by the African-American orator, educator, and political leader Booker T. Washington, shaped strategies and visions of Black modernity throughout the Western Hemisphere, especially in places where the plantation had also taken root. In many ways, this book emerged from my experience as a native Southerner living in New York City for graduate school. I encountered quite a bit of bias against the South, and found that the region was often reduced to its rurality and its history of racial violence. Now, I am keenly aware of the South's anti-Blackness, both past and present, and I would be the last to ever minimize it. But I also know from my own experience that there is a rich cultural, intellectual, and political history in the region that deserves acknowledgement as well, especially among Southern African Americans. In New York, I learned so much about the Great Migration, about the people who fled from the U.S. South and the Caribbean to live better lives in New York and Philadelphia and Chicago and Detroit. But it became clear to me that what it meant to be modern within Black studies was rooted in an urban cosmopolitan experience and background. I couldn't help but wonder, though, about the people who, like my grandparents, had remained in the South. How did they perform their modern subjectivity? And how did they understand their relationship to Black people in other parts of the world? Exploring Washington's and Tuskegee's international footprint helped me to start finding the answers to these gnawing questions. Now, within African American and African diaspora studies, Booker T. Washington is often regarded as a political accommodationist who publicly accepted social segregation in exchange for the hope or promise of economic opportunity for Black people. Likewise, because Tuskegee focused on agricultural and industrial education, it's often regarded as a manual labor training school that simply prepared African Americans to accommodate to the U.S. South's racist labor economy. However, as I delved into Tuskegee's archive, I noticed a largely overlooked story about the significance of its agricultural and aesthetic innovations, as well as its considerable appeal to Black intellectuals and political leaders and laypersons in places like Cuba, Haiti, Puerto Rico, Jamaica, and Guyana. Tuskegee's primary contribution to Black modernity, as I conceive of it, lies in its practice of sustainable and regenerative agriculture, especially through the work of renowned agricultural scientist George Washington Carver, who served as the school's director of its agriculture department. Carver conducted numerous experiments on soil regeneration using organic matter such as dead leaves and manure and swamp muck, and he emphasized the importance of crop rotation to prevent soil exhaustion. Carver would then translate and disseminate his research to poor farmers in the U.S. South, and through Washington's international reputation and Tuskegee's print culture, these ideas were further translated and disseminated to the broader African diaspora as a model of Black self-determination through liberatory agriculture. Now, in addition to recovering Tuskegee's vision of Black agricultural modernity and its diasporic influence, my book explores how Tuskegee's Southern African American and Afro-Caribbean students adapted their educations into their own unique aesthetic and political projects. Starting around 1898, Tuskegee began recruiting students from the Caribbean and Latin America and even Africa. In my book, I focus on the trajectories of three of the school's most prominent students from the early 20th century. The famed novelist, anthropologist, and folklorist Zora Neale Hurston, the Afro-Jamaican poet turned novelist Claude McKay, and the Afro-Jamaican Pan-Africanist leader Marcus Garvey. Each of these figures was schooled in Tuskegee's curriculum in some way, sometimes directly, sometimes indirectly, variously embracing it, adapting it, critiquing it, and sometimes outright rejecting it. And they would go on to become luminaries of the Harlem Renaissance and the new Negro Movement of the 1920s and 1930s. So by retracing Tuskegee's influence on their life and work, I show how despite the Great Migration away from the region, the global Black South remained integral to Black modern subjectivity in the early 20th century. Thank you for your interest in Afterlives of the Plantation. I hope it's an informative and engaging read for you.